Hey guys, do you like anime video
No.
games? Well, too
No.
bad. This is a Sega game, kind of, sort of. So we're talking about Persona 5 Royal. Because, funnily enough, all three of us have some connection to this game, and I was like, hey, let's talk about it because I really, really like Persona 5, and I can go on about it for 5 hours, maybe, sort of. So,
But
let's talk about it. I'm Stefan. We got Chris Mikonos guy here.
hi, I got this game for free, so take my opinions with a grain of salt.
Damn. And we got Steve Amand.
Hi, I got Sonic Mania for free, so take everything I say about that with a grain of salt.
All right, you got Sonic Mania for free.
Yeah, I got the
Notoriously-
FTCR review copy.
Notoriously, you shill for that game, so I know not to trust you when you say you don't like it.
Yeah.
When I found out Chris got the game for free, I was like, damn. He got it for free and he got it like early, so I was like, damn, man. But then I was like, oh, I was gonna buy the limited edition set anyway, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, and while I got it to cover for my channel plug, I did buy the Steelbook anyway, so you know. But yeah, Persona 5.
So this will be interesting because all three of us kind of share differing perspectives with the game. I know Steven played the original vanilla Persona 5, but he hasn't played Royal, and I don't think you know like what all the differences and what like the spoilers are yet, right?
No. Spoil
Okay,
me,
yes.
Daddy.
Yeah, and Chris has only played Persona 5 Royal and hadn't played the original.
I got
Wow,
to the start of Madarame's palace in 5, but I'm a very distracted boy, so I stopped playing, intending to get back to it, and then Royal showed up in my inbox, so I said, oh, okay, that's a good excuse to play that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I've played both. I play. My experience is that back in 2017 when the game came out, I mean, I knew of the Persona series, and like I know all my friends like loved Persona 3 and 4, and one of them likes Persona 1 and 2 even. And then I was
they're
like,
weird. Okay.
yeah, the weird ones. And then I was like, oh, that looks interesting. Maybe I'll play it, but probably not because I mean, I like RPGs, but it's just over 100-hour games. I'm like, I can't handle that. But then Caro was just like, you gotta play Persona 5. You gotta play Persona 5. And I'm like, fine. And I looked it up, and I looked up at my library, and there was like, oh, they had the PS3 version there. So I'm like, okay, I'll rent it. I took it out. So I played through it, and but the way I ended up playing through was that I got really engaged into the story. I got engaged in the story really well. I loved the characters and stuff. The gameplay took a bit to get to me. Like, playing through the first palace, I had to have her kind of, like, sitting with me on the phone telling me what to do, because I'm like, fuck, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm, like, not used to this kind of gameplay style, but by the time I got to, like, the third and fourth palace, I was like, okay, I know how to handle this game, and then I got really into it, and then basically by the end, I'm like, damn, I really like this game. And then 3 years pass, I was like, oh, I wanted to try the New Game Plus, but I just kept holding it off. Then Royal was announced, and I'm like, oh, well, might as well just wait for Royal, and then played Royal, and it was a really fun experience just because, yeah, it had been so long since I really experienced Persona 5 again, and just kind of playing through it from the beginning, and just because it's a really deeply like integrated like plot and has a lot of like twists and turns. So starting back at the beginning, and you're just like, oh, that's foreshadowing that, and that's foreshadowing that, and it was really cool to see, and it was like just re-experiencing like that love that I had at the beginning. Kind of forgot about it and being like, oh, dude, this gameplay is really fun. These characters are really great. This story is actually really engaging and stuff like that. Like it gave me a new appreciation to the game, as well as also adding a couple other twists and turns into it that made it even like surprising to someone who's played the original before.
So what I have to say to that is, did you say you played the PS3 version?
Yes, the original Persona 5 came out on PS3 and PS4.
That's why it looks like a PS3 game.
I forgot about that.
Me
Yeah.
too.
It was actually useful for me because like I think I just got my PS4 that year, and my brother always played the PS4, so he had it on him all the time. But with the PS3, I'm like, oh, I have the PS3, so I can like take it with me to school. I was able to like play through the game, and because I got it from the library, I just took it out, rented it back, rented it out, and just held on to it for several weeks and whatever.
You
So it's like,
bastard.
I got it for free. I played the whole thing for free over the course of like 5 months.
It was like
But it was
one
yeah.
kid in your town being like, I hope he comes back soon. I don't want to wait
I
5
wanna
months. It's my favorite game. I've never played it.
So
too
wait,
bad
Stefan,
nobody-
did you have to like go back every week to rent it?
Well, it was like the way our thing works is that you take out the game. If nobody else has a request for it, you can renew it up to like 5 times or so. Then I'd return it. Then I'd take it out again and just kind of keep doing that over the course of like 5 months.
I didn't know libraries had video games.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I-
That's kind of a thing now. It's
What?
kind of cool. It depends on your
Yeah.
local library, of course, but some libraries get like really dope games. So that's
Yeah,
worth
like
a look.
Yeah, like my libraries carry like pretty recent games. It's like depend like a lot of times like say like they'll have the newer they are, the more requests they'll be in, so you have to wait longer. But it's like for especially over here when video games are nearing $100, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna take advantage of free renting of video games as much as possible.
Yeah.
But I did end up buying the limited after I beat the game. I returned it. I ended up buying the limited edition PS4 set just because I'm like I wanted to support the game. I loved it so much. I wanted to own it. And there's a cross-platform save feature, so it's like you can take your PS3 save file and move it onto the PS4 version. So I'm like, oh, so yeah, I transferred it over and it worked perfectly.
Wow.
That's actually neat. I didn't know that.
So, Steven, what would you say your opinion on Persona 5 was?
Also, my curiosity for Steven that'll help lead into this question. When did you play Persona 5, Steven? I didn't know you played it until we were getting ready to do this.
I stopped playing it. Like I think I beat it like maybe 4 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a long way to say 4 months ago.
That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I like turn-based JRPGs. I think they're fun. I know a lot of people find them irritating. I like them. And I asked some friends, "Hey, what's a good one?" They all say Fire Emblem. So I played that. Oh, and then I also picked this up.
Oh yeah, this game. Yeah.
You know what? This my less than 1 minute summary of this game is the same thing that Donkey said about it. It has everything in a game that I don't like, and for some reason it just works for me. So yeah, I like it a lot, and I would not expect to like it. It's great.
This game does have a weird thing where I feel like it's better than the sum of its parts somehow. And I think a lot of its
Yeah.
parts are very good. But there are also stretches of this game where I was like, oh my god, I don't want to do this anymore. Specifically near the end of the game. But somehow, for the 122 hours I played, I was mostly very, very into it. I guess I'll throw it out early. I wish this game was like 40 hours and not 3 times as long, especially the Royal version. But in spite of that, I was still like really interested in what was going on all the way through, which like I said in our Last of Us thing, I have a very bad attention span, especially these days. Like I'll bounce off like a media thing in like 5 minutes if it doesn't get me, just because I have no control over my brain now. But yeah, so it's kind of an immense miracle that I made it all the way through this. But I think that speaks to the weird magnetic pull this game can have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something I was saying. Yeah, because I'm really terrible with long video, especially with RPGs and just long games in general. I'm like, I can't. If something is too long, especially even with TV shows and all that stuff, I'm like, if something's too long, I can't handle it. But yet, for some reason, Persona 5, I went through 100 hours of that original game over the course of a few months, and then 135 hours over the course of a month and a half, Royal, and it was just. It went through like a breeze. Like I remember, like when I finally beat the game, I was like, "Oh shit, I beat the game!" It's like, and it was like, yeah, only a month and a half for me, and I was like, "Damn, that like flew by really fast. And I think part of it was because since I had already played the game before, so most of that part I'm like, oh, I recognize all this, I know what to do, I know what I'm expecting. So it was like it felt like it was more so kind of a very like a month-long refresher to get to the new stuff before eventually like then discovering it. And even then, that new stuff, even though it's about like maybe 20 to 30 hours, that still felt really, really short in the long run to me. And so I think before we jump into like a full discussion of like everything that Royal added, I think we should just have like a brief discussion on like just the general game in general, like just the vanilla aspect of Persona 5 and what it did in the original that was carried over to the Royal. And then we'll go into discussing the changes that they added to the main game, like the additions and like how those changes like affected the overall product, and then go into the third semester and like the full-on story spoilers.
The spoil Steven portion of this.
Yeah, but yeah, whatever.
I have a question for you, Stefan, to start this. Is there anything from 5 story-wise that was cut from Royal? Because I know Royal added a lot, but I've never heard anyone say if it lost anything in the process.
No, nothing was cut.
Okay.
There was a couple things that got changed around, which I'll talk about later down the line, but pretty much everything that was in Persona 5 is in Royal. Like, I do think, because I'm not too familiar with Persona 3 and Persona 4's expanded versions, but I've heard from different people that there are fair enough changes between the two, that there is, like, say, for example, there is like a decent enough reason to play original Persona 4 versus Persona 4 Golden, whereas there pretty much is no reason to play Persona 5 when Persona 5 Royal exists, since it's pretty much everything it is, but tweaked more, and there's more to it.
What separates this game from any other game, Stefan?
I would say that I don't know what it would separate. I just think it's if I had to say one word, it's style. This game, I think, which pretty much even people that are kind of mixed on like the game in general, pretty much everybody universally agreed that this game has a funky ass aesthetic. And it's just like, it's so like cool and laid back. Like it has one of the best menu aesthetics that I've seen in any game. Yeah. The music is just super like funky and out there and like really hyper and creative.
It really permeates into like every second of this very long game. Like it's just constantly overbearing. Might sound negative, but it's like a really just in your face all the time style that I'm kind of a sucker for. Like, comparing it to Spider-Verse is a weird thing, but it kind of makes me think of Spider-Verse a little bit.
I see it.
There's like always something stylistically interesting happening on screen, or at least most of the time. So to me, it kind of reminds me of that. And I'd say style is probably the thing that sets it apart. Like, even if you look back at Persona 4 or I just played Catherine, even from the same people, like, it doesn't really pervade everything in those games as much, kind of in Catherine, but
I did play Catherine before I played Persona 5, so when I got to that, like, I looked at like the art design and like especially the cutscenes, and like, yeah, you can tell that this is just they just took the Catherine engine and just kind of expanded upon it.
Yeah, and I guess like the biggest compliment I could give it, especially in like an artistic sense, is that it does definitely look like a PS3 game, but it still manages to A, look good in those aspects most of the time, but B, kind of cover up the blemishes with like all these, anime fucking flourishes all over the place that it's just constantly like, oh, this looks nice. It shouldn't look this nice, but they cover it very well for what it is.
Yeah, and I think also because what jumped out at me like the most at the beginning is the character. I think the characters especially are what they're what all like the fan like that's pretty much what keeps like this game in particular alive. And even the other Persona games, it's always the character, like your main cast of characters. And I do think like again, I haven't played 3 and 4, so I'm not familiar with those. So this isn't really comparing to them, but just looking at the characters, and so like I really love like this group of people, and even a lot of the main supporting characters are all very lively. They've got the English voices especially, I think, are all pretty much perfect for everybody. I should say every main or supporting character all of the NPCs are just, I don't even, I'm pretty sure that they purposely made them all poor because they are so badly voice acted. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like all of the main and supporting characters are just, they're super well done and super like energetic and charismatic, and then you just get like random no names and they just have the most stilted, terrible like drawl. And it's like, are you doing this on purpose, or is this like a weird mess up?
Yeah, I'd say the only like main named character that I didn't really jive with as much as I wanted to, like I can't even remember his name, but he's the Yakuza guy who turns into a fly in his palace.
Kaneshiro.
Kaneshiro, right. Phonetically, that made me think Kamoshida Kaneshiro. So
yeah,
there's no way it's that.
That keeps tripping me up. Yeah, there's the two Ka names.
Yeah, I thought he felt a little bored in the role, so I was going through that. I'm like, man, I should like this more, but this guy, I just can't wait to move on to the next one because his charisma is not there compared to everyone else in the game. But yeah, otherwise, like this is a game where I finished it and I was like, thank God this is over. But I want another game or something with these characters because I don't want them to go away. I want to stop playing this game, but I want to keep hanging with these fucking trope characters.
Yeah, that's the thing. Really, is that they're not really groundbreaking. They're not really groundbreaking characters in such a way. It's just they do their thing. They do their thing so well. Like, I mean, if I had to pick a favorite of the group, it'd probably be Ryuji. Ryuji is like he is the best boy. He is just he's that kind of typical like kind of wannabe kind of like jock-ish type, but he's also just kind of like the doofy best bro who's like always there. He's always just doing his best even if he claims he's not doing his best.
Mm-hmm. He's also the most honest person in the entire game.
Yeah, that's true.
I really
he's the
appreciate
only one
honesty.
that doesn't. He's the only one that doesn't start out the game kind of like giving you shit.
Yeah.
I mean, you as in Joker, Akira, Ren. I don't. There's too many goddamn names for him.
Yeah, it's a shame that Royale still doesn't let us date Ryuji.
Damn, no, it's dumb that there is no gay, because I mean, he has just as good a chemistry with the three main dudes as he does with all of the main girls.
Yeah.
And better than the adult, and better charisma than the adults, so it's like,
yeah,
that makes it even weirder.
I can date my teacher, but I can't date my best bro. Fuck this game. Yeah, I liked Ryuji a lot. I think it was nice to see this very, I guess, typically masculine character. He's not really masculine in the way you would think. Like, he is the jock character, like you said. It's nice seeing like a vulnerability there in this game. Like, throughout his confidant story, you go through and he's like pretty much had a weak point for most of it, but it made it really endearing in a way to where when his thing ended, I was like, oh, I kind of want to see where this goes more. I want more Ryuji than I got. Anyway, I'm going to go hang out with Makoto since she's better. Bye.
Yeah, I don't know who of the four main girls, I don't know who I like, because I feel like all four of them have like their pros and their cons that pretty much all like balance them out each other. Because I'm like, I love Futaba in a lot of ways. Like, I think as a character, I think Futaba might be my favorite, but then you got like An, Makoto, and Haru, which are all just kind of like, they're all amazing in their own ways, and I'm just like, they're all so fun and quirky and energetic, and I'm just like, I don't know who I like more.
It's a product of her coming in so late, but I wish I felt more about Haru.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get that the way the game layers in characters, there eventually had to be some that came in near the end, and you didn't get as much time with them. But even going through her confidant story, I always found her kind of plain-ish, and I wish I didn't feel that way, because I think her B plot, I guess you would say, is actually really interesting. And it gets explored, and it has a nice, happy resolution with the guy from her dad's company actually, wanting the best for her in the company. So I was like, oh, that's sweet. But I was left wanting with her. Futaba's too internet Sorry.
Yeah,
I
no.
can kind of.
Futaga's
can-
gross. I don't understand why people like her.
I totally agree. I was going to
She's
say it, but I
nasty,
totally agree.
man.
I like her just because I really love her story of just kind of like that anxiety ridden girl kind of dealing with because I can relate to that in a lot of ways, just dealing with this sense of like I don't know how to handle things, I don't know how to handle social interaction a lot. And like yeah, I can understand how like her slightly too memey can like get on some people's nerves, but for me I'm like I found it charming, I found it funny.
So, Stefan, when your future romantic partner comes up to you and says, "Mwahaha, XD, you are my key item," you'll be like, "Take me now." Yeah, to me, I was actually surprised you could pursue a romance with her in this video game, because to me, she slotted in very well to the surrogate younger sister role. So when that came up, I was like, "Whoa, okay."
Yeah, a lot of people find that really iffy. I don't think it's as bad just because I feel like they don't completely tie her into she is like his stepsister, so it's like makes it like
Yeah.
really weird. But it's like so I don't think it's like as weird as say dating the teacher. But I do agree that she fits better as like that surrogate sister rather than in the relationship.
Yeah. And I guess this will kind of segue us into talking about the plot overall. But this game does some weird stuff in its plot that I think is worth pointing at and going, man, that's weird. Like the dating your teacher thing. That's
But Chris, that was your decision.
Yeah, that was my decision. The game made me do that. How dare it pass judgment onto me? No, like that's a weird thing, but like it's optional and like it's mostly played for laughs until it isn't. So whatever. But
yeah, pretty much all of the social link romances stuff are they're all optional and not really important to the plot. So it's like it's something like especially the romance stuff. Pretty much all of that's just up to you if you want to see it or not.
Yeah, but then I don't. There's weird stuff in the game. Like in the main plot, you go through the entire first dungeon where it's like, oh no, this teacher is abusing his students and this girl is being like sexualized in the weird way. We got to beat the shit out of him. And then like 30 minutes after you beat that palace, you're like, well, why don't you just be a nude model for this strange painter guy so we can get information? And it's like, wait, what?
Yeah,
and then it keeps bringing
anything.
it up, and I'm like, oh, okay, I know this is like an anime hee-haw moment, but I'm still thinking about the thing we just went through.
Right.
Oh no.
Also, this guy dated a student. By the way, here's a teacher you can date. It's like, wait.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, it's weirdly a lot. Yeah, a lot of the certain decisions kind of mix confusingly with a lot of like the game's kind of themes and politics, so to speak.
Yeah, adults
So it's like,
suck. You should beat them up, but also bang them. So hey.
Well, I mean, to be at least in that case, though, because a lot of like the main story is that they're like, oh, all adults suck, but then it goes to the whole thing of like, oh, not all adults suck. It's just they're you just need to kind of learn. You have to teach them not to suck.
Hashtag not all adults.
You have to use your smooth communication abilities in order to make the crazy Yakuza gun guy be all like, oh, he's not so bad.
Oh yeah. Just talking about that guy for a second. When I first got to that, I was like, oh, this isn't very interesting. And then by the end, I think that might be one of my favorite confidants.
Shit gets real.
Yeah, I really wound up liking that guy specifically. That's
Whatever
all I
his
really
name
have
is.
to say about him. Iwai?
Iwai.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure how to pronounce his name, so I was like, that guy. The Geico Gecko guy,
Gun guy.
Yeah, gun guy. His store music's pretty cool. I don't know.
Although, just in going back to what you mentioned about the on thing, that it did lead to, I think, I don't know if it's the funniest, the hardest I laughed when I first played the game, but just the reveal of her in the giant sweater.
Oh yeah.
that hit me so hard.
That is a good part.
Just see her in this giant big sweater, and she's like, "What? What's wrong?"
This thing kind of suffers a little bit from anime-itis in terms of writing, though. Like, we talk about this game being long and the story being long, and I feel like it just, all you gotta do is cut out half the dialogue and you get the same story. Like, if these characters wanted to go get a burger, one guy would be like, "Hey, I'm hungry. Let's go to the burger shop." The burger shop? The place that has burgers? Wow, I've been to the burger shop. Yeah, I love the burger shop. Hey, me too. Just go get a burger. Just go get a burger.
And then Ryuji will pop up and say, "For real?"
Yeah. For real? Just, if you're hungry, go eat. Stop talking about eating. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but this
a lot that could be trimmed for sure.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's just like we talk about it being long, but it's like, yeah, but it's doing it to itself.
Yeah, well, I'm like of two minds of it, because like on the one, like say for example, you have something like say that Hawaii trip where it's like, yeah, plot wise it doesn't add, it basically like adds nothing, but it's also a thing of like, oh, it's you want to hang out, like you like these characters like so much that you want to just chill and hang out with them, and it's like maybe there'll be funny and fun stuff happens, maybe there won't, and it's just kind of like you just like check it out and see what happens. That Hawaii thing does have a bunch of like really like fun moments and some like pretty like sweet moments as well.
Yeah, for as much nothing as that adds to the main plot, it did feel really fucking refreshing. So I can easily excuse that one. I really like that part.
Me too.
To me, like the length of the story, it's kind of weird because I feel like, you know, obviously it's a game about like escalation, right? Each target needs to be bigger than the last. They get clouded by this clout pursuit at points, which was a little weird sometimes. But there's a point where like early on it feels very focused on about the school and how the school is going to suffer. So I was like, oh, this is going to be a very personal, contained story. And then by the end you're fighting God and you forget that there even is a school. But like there's a lot of like dangling threads about like at a point like the principal gets mind murdered, and yeah. I guess you're meant to assume a lot of the corruption ends there, but there's a lot of talk in the lead up to that point of like, oh, the school is doing so terribly, how's the school going to get through this, and at least in Royal you still see that there are terrible people at that school. I think even after the guy died, I forget where it places, but that I guess just kind of resolves itself, and the teachers always act like it's normal, and I thought it was kind of weird that there was so much lip service given to how is this school going to survive as like a structure where these kids go, and then it's just kind of like, fuck this burger guy, right? Let's go kill the burger dad.
If there is an issue with the story, I would say it's things that it's doing so many things at once, and it's trying to juggle so many important plot points all at once that like, so yeah, some of them end up especially like important plot, like even not even just that, but even other like major important plot points end up just kind of getting dropped like at the end when like, yeah, like the whole thing, like because you have the whole, like, again, spoiler alert, the whole Shido stuff, and then you finish that, and then you get onto fighting God, and most of that stuff is just kind of tossed to the side to go deal with the God shit. So It's just kind of like everything just kind of like piles onto it, because they're dealing with so much. Like you have the beginning where they're doing the stuff with Kamoshida, which then goes on to the Madarame and then Kaneshiro, and then in the background you have like this thing of like, oh, this conspiracy that's going on. There's like these little hints of, oh, these people are doing something, but you aren't really sure what exactly. And then it gets more and more, once the Medjed stuff starts up.
Yeah, and like that stuff worked for me. Like all those new threads they dangled did get me interested, and like it did help keep me going. But, you know, like you mentioned Shido, and I forgot he was even in this game. Like I was so ready to hate Shido, and then by the time I got to his fight, I was like, all right, we're doing this. I guess I'm killing you. Bye. It felt like it should have been a bigger moment. Maybe part of that was me knowing that I was at like the penultimate final boss, because it's Royal, so it didn't feel as impactful, but I was like, I was hoping I'd feel more by the time I finally got to this point, but it kind of just feels like going through the motions a little bit. That and his palace kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's all I would say what's his face, Okumura is probably still the weakest palace, although that's mainly for the ending puzzle, which just drags on a bit too long.
I looked up a guide, and the guide I looked up was incorrect, so I had a terrible time at that part even with the guide.
I think I got lucky. I got lucky. I accidentally did the correct order.
Oh, lucky. Yeah, I was like, I'm not fucking with this. I'm using a guide, and then the guide was wrong, and I was like, well, fuck me. And then I guess Royal changed that boss fight, and it was miserable. And I was like, I just want to be away from Burger Boy. I don't want to think about Okuma ever again.
I almost forgot about that because I don't remember what it was in the original, but yeah, the boss, Okumura's boss in in the game, yeah, because it's basically just an enemy gauntlet, and it's just it's a timed enemy gauntlet.
Yeah,
I'm for favorite palace. I think story wise, my favorite palace is probably Futaba's. Just because I love like the way like the mystery is set up of like, oh, what's going on with this place, what is she really thinking, like how the revelation with her mom is slowly built up, the way the music kind of helps tell the story and make this like whole like pyramid place be really eerie. But the best palace is still, I think, Sai's, because just Sai's is the best visually looking, it has the most interesting stuff going on, it's got the best music track. I also really like that the whole thing of that, because you have these 7 palaces, which are all slightly connected to the 7 deadly sins. Although I think even the game is kind of confused which sin each character is.
Yeah.
Like you have the one character whose whole thing is about money, and like in a bank of money, it's like, oh, is it greed? It's like, no, it's gluttony. And I'm like, okay, I guess kind of. I mean, he's hoarding and he's a pig and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
then you got like, what was it, Madarame? Madarame's like whole thing is about money, and it's like, oh, is he greed? And it's like, no, he's pride. No, he's not pride. He's it might be pride. I don't know. I don't even remember anymore. Point. Futaba is sloth, because I think Futaba's supposed to be sloth, but I think the trophies label each of the palaces as the different sin compared to what the game does, which just also tripped me up. But it's like it's confusing, but I do kind of like that idea of like taking advantage of like that concept of the sins, and like, oh, because the palaces are all about distorted desires, so what's a more distorted desire than the 7 deadly sins?
I don't
and also that 2 of the palaces you go through are good guys. Like, so it's like, oh, it's not all villains who have palaces, and it's just like, oh, one of them is like one of the main supporting characters, and one is a kind of like side supporting character that becomes major after the fact.
Yeah,
I don't see Futaba as a sloth though. She's paralyzed with fear. So,
I guess it's just because like she lounges around her room.
She's
like,
afraid to leave her room.
Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously, but I just mean like it's still vague, but you can see how sloth would fit the most with her compared to everybody else.
Sloth by circumstance, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think for me, I found this is a weird thing to quantify, but sometimes with longer stories, I get very into the initial premise of a story, and then I can become like nostalgic for that premise before the scale and ante gets upped and upped and up all over again. I think for me, like, I was just so immediately engaged with this game that I really liked Kamoshida's Palace, even though it really wasn't anything special. To me, that also, at least in Royal, I'm sure some things were changed. It felt like one of the more interesting ones to go through. Like, I felt like I was actually going through a castle, whereas with some of these, I tried to think back to what the palace was, and I kind of blank a little bit. Like, I forgot Okumura's even had that puzzle until you mentioned it, but...
Space!
Yeah, space is the theme. There's airlocks? I don't know.
And his shadow looks like Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah. With like a voice filter that makes him silent-ish for some reason.
Yeah.
That part of the airlocks, I was just thinking of fucking... what's it from Sonic Adventure 2? A Crazy Gadget the whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah. That and Futaba's Palace music made me think Sonic Adventure 2. So I was having like weird, like, stress flashbacks to Sonic Adventure 2 at points throughout this game.
You think there's a pyramid inside that other pyramid?
Yeah. It's like, oh, is there going to be a spaceship next? God. But yeah.
I mean, technically it was. There was a spaceship next right after it. That was the fifth palace.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is this is Sonic Adventure 3, and it's really good. But yeah.
I have a question about the 2 main character plot twists. The 2 main character plot twist reveals. Did you see them coming, or did you predict? The first being Bitch Boy himself, Akechi.
Akechi. Oh, I always knew something was off with him. quick question. Did he have a confidant thing in the original Persona 5?
Well, no. In the original game, his confidant was timed, so it gradually happened throughout the game, kind of like with Sai's confidant.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, in Royal added like now you can actually like, go and hang out with Akechi and like level up himself, which knowing like the twist beforehand and doing them made things really awkward because I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what you're doing right now. This is pretty weird. Where I'm going, you're taking me out to a jazz club right now while you're off about to murder one of our friends' fathers. Whoops.
Yeah. For me, I didn't see it coming because there was like a confidant thing. So I was like, oh, well, he's going to join our party later, probably. And, oh, he seems so nice, whatever. And this is external to the game, but our friend Jack really likes Akechi for reasons I've never talked to him about. So I was like, well, he has to be a good guy if Jack has like a plush of him and likes him so much. And then I got to that part, I was like, oh, this was really obvious, but I believed him on good faith, I guess. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming at all. Just sometimes I don't really think things through either in stories. Like I like to just experience it and then think about it after, right? So like a lot of twist villains people think are really obvious. I never really clue into beforehand, unless they like make it really like Disney movie villain obvious. So.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't like figure out that. Oh, that he. I didn't figure out the whole thing. I'm like, oh, that he's like kind of basically kind of the main bad, but not really. I assumed. I knew something was up, especially because the beginning of the game has the whole thing of like, oh, you were betrayed by somebody, and I'm like, gee, I wonder who it could be. But it's just the whole kind of like the reasoning and like what his actual like the motivation and like what he's been doing the whole time. That was probably like the biggest twist for me.
So this will tell you how I approached this game mentally. When it said someone was going to betray you, Makoto was introduced as an antagonist of sorts, is sisters with Sai, and has red eyes, so I was like, oh, there we go. There's our twist character.
I was gonna say that I'm playing through the game again. I noticed that because I noticed this when I first played it, and noticed it again is that they kind of try to imply that Makoto could possibly like they do leave some hints making you think that Makoto could possibly be the traitor. Yeah. But like in like a way of like, oh, she's trying to protect her sister for whatever reason. So I'm like, oh, you can see like they're trying to like have like a red herring in some way. But then like when you know going forward, you're like, oh yeah, it's clearly him. But then of course there's the other twist, which I do think is genuinely amazingly well done, is that they knew that he was onto them pretty much the entire time and basically fucked everything up so that they could get him back, so to speak. And I thought that reveal, because playing it and you get his whole thing and he shoots him in the face and you're just like, what? And then you get Ryuji being like, we got him. And I'm like, what? And then you get that big long exposition dump where they're like, okay, so this is exactly what we did in order to figure out our plan. And I'm like, this is like super long and exposition heavy and it's kind of like poorly written. But I'm like, it's so well done and just kind of like you never really saw it coming, so to speak. So
you never see it coming.
You'll see.
Yeah, for me that fell apart a bit just because like it felt like the game was winking at you too much or that. It's like, did you see what we did? We're going to tell you every single aspect. Whereas if they had just shown the fucking I can't believe this is the fucking scene. But if they just showed the pancake scene, I would have been like, oh, okay. That's all you needed to show me. I get it. Like it was literally that early on and obvious, but I didn't think about it because I'm an idiot.
Yeah, it was a good idea. Like I think that is like such a genius idea of like you have that pancake scene so early on in the game, and then hours and hours and later it gets paid off, and because you forgot about it, and then you realize, oh shit, that's right.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, the detective guy thought he heard pancakes. That's quirky. You don't really think about it. Yeah, it felt. I agree with you. It feels like a brilliant idea. I just wish when they finally pulled the curtain, it felt more graceful because it kind of feels like the curtain came out of the rod a bit, and then they're like, "No, wait, we promise it's something good. Hang on."
Especially when they then cut to Shido and Akechi, and they're just kind of explaining both of their whole motivations to nobody, and it's just like, they know there's a camp, they know somebody's listening in on them, and they got to explain everything about each of their plans.
That was when I remembered that this game's secretly Scooby-Doo, because Shido's like, and then we're going to murder them, and then Akechi's like, yeah, and then I'll help. I was like, okay, shut up. Just go away. I don't like you. Jack was wrong. Hashtag Jack.
He is wrong. I keep trying to tell him. Well, Ketchy's a piece of shit. I love him for being a piece of shit, but he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. I guess we'll touch more on Akechi when we get to the royal stuff, though, because I have some more words about Akechi, but it mostly applies to the endgame stuff.
Yeah, but I will say, at least related to the main game, I do feel like the game kind of brushes aside his whole role in Shido's plan. So when he shows up, he even says, "This is my plan. I got this power. I came to Shido to go I have this big, massive 3-year-long plan in order to act as Shido's magical assassin, to kill a whole bunch of people, to make him prime minister, just so I can be like, hey bitch, I'm your bastard son. Ha 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 ha." That's his plan. And then when you find out that Shido's like, oh, hey, I was going to kill you once I became prime minister. And he's like, what? And I'm like,
blows up.
Well, am I supposed to feel bad for you when you went like this over the top with it? And it's like, you really fell for that. Yeah. It's like and pretty much all the characters are like, oh, we don't forgive you, but I mean, we basically forgive you.
Yeah, that was where it fell apart a little for me. It's like everyone's like, oh, when he dies, it's such a like, everyone's like, oh no, not Akechi. He really helped us, even though we conspired against him the whole game.
Even when they're fighting him, they're like, we don't have to fight you. We're both on this. We both want to. We both hate Shido. We both want to stop him.
Dr. Wowie.
It's kind of, it's that whole kind of anime rival. I mean, this is especially like shown like this. They especially lean into this in the royal stuff. But like he's basically that anime rival character of like he's the asshole who kind of goes against everybody, who's kind of villainous, who does villainous things. But it's like, oh, but he means well, so the heroes are gonna try and bring him on to their side, even though
he's literally murdered people,
2 of their parents. Like it still bothers me that Futaba never actually mentioned. Like they say, oh, Shido killed her mom, but I'm like, I guess, but I mean, Akechi is the one who actually did it, and he said that he didn't do it like forcefully. Like it wasn't like Shido forced him. He did it like knowing, like he wanted to do it. So that's why they just end up kind of taking away a lot of his agency, so to speak, and I feel that kind of undermines a lot. They undermine a lot of, like, I think the most interesting parts of his character just to make him more good, so to speak.
Yeah, like for all the runtime this game has, and again, this gets weird with the royal stuff, but like, does Futaba or Haru ever confront him? Like, I know if they did, knowing how his character is, he would have just been like, I don't care, I did it because I needed and or had to. But like, we'll get into it a bit more. Yeah, we'll get into a bit more in the royal stuff, but it's like, yeah, it just feels so weird that's basically never mentioned. Again, I did enjoy this game immensely, but those are some of many story beats that work kind of as you're playing it, and then you stop to think about it for like 3 seconds, and you're like, I
feel like I feel like a lot of that's more like kind of like overall gripes rather than, because I mean, like the actual like the writing and all the like the writing and most of the structure, so to speak, is still well done. It's just kind of like, oh, it would have been better if this was touched on and this was touched on, so to speak.
A lot of kind of like we were getting at earlier, a lot of dangling threads for sure.
Yeah, and then there's the other twist, which is Igor, which I didn't see coming at all.
That one was interesting to me specifically, and sorry, Steven, I'm not letting you talk at the moment if you were going to say anything. But I'd played a little bit of Persona 4 Golden, and I knew how Igor sounded in that game, right? So I remember when this game came out, there were people being like, oh no, they changed Igor's voice actor, that's weird. And then when I played it, he's like this... I'm pretty sure they like filtered his voice down pitch wise. I was like, oh, this is different.
It's Shadow's voice actor. What's his name?
Is it? Grant
I
Kirkhope?
kind of look. No, what's his name?
Not Grant Kirkhope. What?
Not Grant Kirk. What?
Kirk Thornton.
Kirk Thornton. Yeah, I checked it up. Yeah, it was because I was wanting to see like who was the guy who did him / Yaldabaoth, and I was like, yeah, it was Kirk Thornton.
Yeah.
Which I'm like listening to. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That very grasply, like, welcome to the Velvet Room.
Yeah. So when they pay that off by like, oh, hey, it actually wasn't him. Undermined a little bit because it didn't go back to the old voice actor, but it's at least the old voice. So it's like, oh, that's an interesting way to pay that off.
To be fair, the reason I didn't think about it was because I knew that the Japanese voice actor for Igor had died in between 4 and 5, so which is why they recast it. So it was like people were like, oh, they changed Igor's voice, but it's because he died. That makes sense. And then when that twist happens, you're like, oh shit, no, they actually used this kind of unexpected tragedy like for the twist. Like they made it like work in the story, and it's like, oh, that's like a really genius idea. And then they made it work in the English version.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because especially like going through like the game and starting off and knowing like what Igor's doing the whole time, and I'm just like, motherfucker, you're just I literally screamed at the screen, I'm not gonna have a fucking cup lecture me about the ethics of friendship. I do, and I think the second playthrough did help me appreciate the ending a lot better, because I did think that whole kind of like swap, like the whole thing of like, oh, the way the whole general public is treated in that whole ending, I thought it was kind of like weirdly done and thought it was out of place. But now, especially nowadays with the media and how the general public has been treating a lot of things going on lately, I do kind of like appreciate the message that the game is going for, which is that really the general public is the main villain and the main cause of pretty much every issue that what goes like Kamoshida. The whole thing is that, oh, the people who knew about it just didn't say anything because they didn't want to cause any issues. The people who were too ignorant to question Madarame's decisions. People who didn't fight up against Kanashiro. The people who let Kumara do whatever he wanted. The people who just listened to whatever Shido said, and then eventually, because you have Yaldabaoth, who is the living embodiment of all of humanity's basically annoyances and grievances. And then throughout the whole game, you have the public switching on a dime whatever their feelings are, depending on what's popular in the media. Like, oh, they hate the Phantom Thieves, and they love the Phantom Thieves, and they hate the Phantom Thieves. Then they're like, the Phantom Thieves who? And it's just like, you kind of see this whole thing of like, oh yeah, the general public just doesn't care, and it's like, it doesn't matter if you take down the big bad and have him confess his sins. They're like, we don't care, whatever. And it's like, in some ways, it's kind of too real.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it a lot more. I just kind of get, the world is so broken that you just gotta have to find God and shoot him in the face, and maybe things will, maybe that'll fix things.
That was
if
brilliant.
2020 had a DVD cover, I would hope that would be the quote at the bottom. Yeah, that was one thing I did clue in on while playing it, and like, it's very understated for most of the game, which makes it either feel intentionally or unintentionally very smart. And I really, really appreciated that as I was going through. Because like at first, that public opinion meter on all the loading screens is like, oh, that's cute, Mishima made a site, and then once it clicks for you, you're like, oh right, this is about how fucking waffly people are about things that matter. At first, when you were talking about the people being weird, I thought you meant at the end where everything goes red and there's skeletons everywhere, and I was like, that made more sense in the second playthrough. But then you start talking more, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, just I'm more of like the general public in general, rather than the whole thing of like, oh, the weird magic of Mementos and Yaldabaoth's kind of fusion with the world and stuff like that. Yeah, that's like a whole other like weird thing of like, oh, that's I do like that everybody you max social linked with sees the world for what it actually is. So it's kind of this thing of like, oh, the people who kind of know the truth, so the people who know the truth like can see everything clearly, and they're just all like, what the fuck's going on? Yeah,
that part of that did work for me. I didn't like it as much, but I fell for the trap and the bait when the planet needed to cheer for you, and they showed all the characters you maxed out, and they were all saying nice things. I got a little emotional. I was like, oh, right. Those are my friends. Thank you. Though I will say, one thing I didn't realize until I beat the game, and I was talking with a buddy, there's an entire social link I just didn't get. And I don't know if it's common. It's I guess you meet some kid in an arcade or something.
Oh, the kid, Shinya, yeah.
I did not know that character existed. I think at one point they say to go to that part of town and go to the arcade to investigate. But in my mind, that was like, oh, go to Mementos after doing this, and I don't enjoy Mementos that much. So I was like, I'll get to it.
Okay, yeah. So you didn't do most. I assume you didn't do most of the requests then.
I don't know how many there are, but any of them I did do up until like the last 3 or 4 in the Royal exclusive part, because I was just wanted to be done with the game. But
yeah, because the Shinya's unlocked because there's a Mementos mission where you go fight a guy who's like cheating at video games, so you can't actually beat him when you try to fight him because he's invincible. So they're like, you need to go find some way to kind of counteract him. So you go to meet Shinya, and he's like, oh, I'll teach you how to use a special move to to take down opponents, and then you can go. So you start as confidant, then you can go back and beat the guy. So like that's how his confidant is unlocked.
Oops.
he is the last. He's like, I think he is the last confidant you can unlock. So
is he cool? Like, did I miss out on the character or gameplay thing, or is he just kind of like, eh?
He does his power that you unlock. He has this really useful power that you can unlock where occasionally at the start of battle you can like unleash a whole bunch of like gunshots at people, which can take up to half of their health.
Well, so it's
okay. Like there's that really fun thing. His whole story is that he's this kind of like bratty-ish kid who's really good at video games, but he's kind of like he has like he has like mom issues, so to speak, and he's like dealing with things. But like talking with Kira, he learns how to loosen up. So he learns how to loosen up and starts being friendly with the other kids around town, and it's like that's basically what his story is.
He's a Twitch streamer. Okay, got it.
I mean, kind of like one of the things is him like getting into a little like slight feud with like a famous a YouTuber, so to speak, gamer who like beats him in a thing. So he's like, boy. Oh, I can't believe I lost, and his voice is kind of weird. He's voiced by the woman who played Rita Repulsa in Power Rangers. So it's like this old woman playing a 12-year-old boy, and it's like it sounds kind of awkward, but it's like.
That is very anime.
But I mean, he only has like a couple lines because he only speaks in like the first and last confidant things. So
sounds like I didn't miss too much then.
I'm trying to think of who is the social link I ended up using the most, and I think Chiaya. By the end of the game, I ended up using the most because I would just keep on using the whole like where you can like level up one of the people's social link stats. So I just keep on doing that because I'm like, oh, I'm running low. I want to max out somebody's social link, but they're like stuck on that. Like, oh, you have to kind of like waste a day with them. So I just pay the money to get that like thing like boosted up. So it basically just helping to save like time and day, because that's my whole thing whenever I play the game. I'm like, okay, I need to figure out what exactly I need to do on each day. Is like, do I talk with this person? Do I talk with this person? Do I buy this? Do I waste time doing this? And that is one of the funnest things I do have with the game. Just that whole thing of like, okay, you have all these things you need to get done, and you have like the limited amount of time to do it. So what are you going to choose? How are you going to make use of your available time?
Chris, I don't think that's how you played it, is it?
I did the fortune teller last. So knowing that would have helped me out in so many situations, I'm sitting here like, oh okay, yeah. These games, I played like 10 hours of 5, right? And I played 10 hours of 4 Golden, and the scheduling thing was always very stressful to me, because my mind immediately thought, I need to go to the optimal path. Optimal path requires a guide. I hate playing entire games with a guide open on the webpage. Oh God, I'm not doing the optimal path. Holy God, help! So I'd get like 10 hours in and try to power through, and then it would just get to me. Thankfully it clicked this time and I got over it, but Yeah, I'm very much the opposite, where when a game hands me that kind of thing, I'm like, nope, I don't enjoy trying to optimize this on my own. No, thank you.
Yeah, I don't like follow a guide or anything. It's more so just kind of like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm either getting my like whatever, like the knowledge, charm, whatever, make sure that one of those get boosted up, or I'm getting one of the social stats getting one of the social links boosted up. And it's like, if I get one of those two done on one of those days, and I'm like, then I'm golden.
Golden.
Yeah, that's the wrong game. And to quickly jump over to like the actual gameplay, fighting style. The first time playing it, I was completely tripped up on how the actual Persona system worked. It's like I know that they want you to just keep fusing the personas so that they can get stronger and stronger like that, but for the most part I would just end up keeping the same personas for as long as possible and just leveling them up and just giving them special moves, because I feel like it's just, I was basically playing it like Pokemon.
Yeah,
because I'm like, I'm just so used to doing that more.
It's definitely an area of this game that has a lot of depth that I didn't really dig into, because I pretty much did the same thing. Yeah.
Like, one of the new stuff they added is that you can like drop a persona off in the Velvet Room, and like you can use like the incenses and stuff to bust some of its stats up. And like I tried it once and I saw the results and I'm like, it's not worth it, and I just never used it again. And you don't need it.
Yeah, that's very much I did it for the trophy kind of thing. And once I did that, I was like, yep, I'm good. Don't need that.
Yeah, there's like a lot of things when I kind of look back on it. There's a lot of like the things that you can do in the game, because they give you so many options of stuff to kind of up your stats that you kind of focus on, that there are some things that you just end up never doing. Like I think I only did the maid cafe once just because I had to in order to access one of the things I wanted to get.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I think I only ended up doing the bathhouse once, and I think that was just that was like a character thing that you could do. Like, oh, you could ask a character to go hang with you at the bathhouse.
Yeah, that, fishing, batting cages, laundry.
I did fishing at the end of the game basically because I literally had nothing else to do because I finished everything. So I'm like, fuck it, let's go fishing. And I played fishing. I'm like, this doesn't work. I just kept trying to fish and no fish would grab it. And I'm like, fuck it. I'm glad I didn't play you. Yeah, and then the laundromat, you only use Kawakami to do it. You never waste a day to make stuff to use the laundromat. You always use Kawakami. Is there any other just kind of general gameplay decisions you want to talk about before we get into the royal stuff?
I want to say no, because I feel like I've been stopping myself a lot with the I'll wait till we get to royal part.
Okay, there is one quick story thing I do like is that with all the social links, I like that pretty much all of the non-playable characters, their resolution is dealt with. It's like, oh, there's somebody like giving them shit, so you got to go into Mementos and beat up a guy, and then their problems are solved. But for pretty much all of the main like playable characters, you think that's gonna happen, but they end up resolving the problem on their own, which I really like. That show, like. Ryuji has this whole thing of like, oh, the people, the track team are about to deal with a guy who's just as bad as Kamoshida and has his own kind of scheme. So it's like, oh, do we go in and beat him up? And Ryuji's like, no, I'll just tell the guys. And then it ends up working. And it's like, oh, that's a really smart way to do it. And then with Haru, it's like, oh, Haru, like she's been dealing with her ex-fiance. And it's like, oh, what do you do? It's like, do we have to change somebody's heart? And she's like, oh, I'll just go ask... I'll go ask the guy that I'm nervous about, and it turns out, oh, he's a nice guy.
There was never actually a marriage contract, so he's going to sort it out. Cool.
Whoops. Yeah, fuck him, anyway.
Yeah, fuck him, yeah.
Yeah, I think the only different thing, because like Futaba is the only of the main characters that has it, but because she has her whole thing with the abusive uncle, which like and they at least change it up by having it be just you two go and fight him.
Yeah.
And then Yoshida doesn't have one, which I kind of guess makes sense because, oh, you're already fighting a politician later in the game. You don't need to fight another politician now.
Oh, yeah, I didn't actually do his all the way through. He vanished before I...
Yeah, he was one of the first ones I wanted to get done because I was like, okay, he's only on Sundays and he finishes like at the end of November. So I'm like, yeah, he's one of the ones that gets locked out pretty fast. So I want to do that.
Yeah.
And he helps. He like lets. I think his power lets you. He lets you get more money and get special items when you're talking with downed personas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Okay, let's go into the new stuff. So first, I'll do a bunch of kind of the smaller new stuff. So they give you a grappling hook that they just keep using. They just keep finding ways to use that grappling hook.
They want it to be a thing, and it never really feels like the thing they want it to be. I remember that being one of the first selling points they were talking about. It's like, there's a grappling hook now. And it's like, oh, this gets you to some new areas and isn't cutscenes. Okay.
I'm glad that there is a really good gameplay mechanic where you can use your grappling hook to basically get over here a persona, and when at the start of the battle they'll be dizzy. So like
yes.
that's a really useful gameplay mechanic that I use all the time.
I was surprised it wasn't a bigger thing, though, because like I guess in a JRPG, how do you use that much, right? But in The Last Palace, there is like a point where you're like looking in rooms for a video cassette.
Right, yeah.
And you can like go to the scaffolding above to avoid a lot of the shadows going around. And I was like, yeah, I wish there was more stuff like this throughout the game, because that would have made it make more sense that they added this thing.
Yeah, and it's mainly because since pretty much all of the game is the same, so they just they have these like one or two sections where they have like a grappling hook for you to use. Like I know there's like a part where you're in in Kamoshida's palace. There's a part where there's like this big courtyard that you can go through from like the outside into the tower, and normally you would just kind of go through around some very powerful enemies, but now there's like a grappling hook that you can just swing above and just kind of skip all of that.
Yeah.
They also add these things called will seeds. So where it's like inside each of the palace there are these 3 doors that are they're hidden, but it's like they're not hidden. It's more so just kind of if you're exploring all the parts on your map, you're gonna like run into them. It's like you can technically miss them and they're optional, but they're right there, so you might as well go get them. Mm-hmm. And basically it's like you pick up all 3 of them and they give you an item, and then you go into Mementos and you go see a character in Mementos and he'll turn it into a more powerful item. That's pretty much it. I was expecting the will seeds to pay off in some way, and it turns out it was because people have been going through the kind of the data in the game, and they found these cutscenes where originally when you get the will seeds you were going to see flashbacks to each of the palace user, and like something that kind of helped distort their worldview in some way. And I feel like that, like I was like, I wish that would have that was in, because that would have done so much to help characterize these kind of characters, which for the most part are pretty one-dimensional.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't really bother with the wool seeds after a point. Like, if I got enough flowers and mementos to exchange them with Josie or whoever to get them, I was like, sure. But yeah, you get them and you get an item that's like sometimes okay, and then sometimes you have better things already, so why use it? That would have been much better, especially on characters like Okumura and Kaneshiro, for sure.
Yeah, like I know from like the video clips I saw, like Kamoshida's, there was like one where it's like him on like the talk show, like talking about like winning his medal. And I know Madarame's one of them was gonna see like where you see Madarame like letting Yusuke's mother die, which I thought like that would have been like shit.
Ooh.
Although I feel like, I mean, like that you would have seen that before the reveal that was his mother, so that would have been interesting to see how that played out in, like, if that was still in the main game.
Yeah, and I guess you do see that a little bit in the Royal Exclusive Palace. Thinking about it, so yeah, it's interesting that they cut that from the others when they were working on it. But hey.
Yeah. I mean, technically with that Royal Exclusive, like those are like integrated into the actual story rather than like connected to the will seeds. So yeah, it's weirdly segmented. And then there's those two. They add a couple new hangout like spots. Like they add darts, which made me remember that the PS4 has motion controls. I completely forgot they had the 6-axis until I was playing darts, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta move my controller around and shake it to throw darts. It was funner than I was imagining.
Yeah, it works pretty alright.
Except for the 700, which fuck that.
Yeah, I just stuck to 300 the whole time. I was like, that's good enough.
And at least they give you some incentive to do it, because if you do it with people, then they get their kind of they get a boost from their baton pass. So I was like, they make you want to do it. It isn't just kind of like an extra fun thing you can to pump up their social link. There's like we mentioned, Akechi now has a confidant, so you kind of it kind of explores slightly more about like the stuff about his character, which it's weird just because it's weird to me at least, because it's hard to tell how much of it is sincere and how much of it is him bullshitting. Because we know that I know a lot of like fans online like to think that he's being 100% sincere through the whole thing, and I'm like, I don't know, because he seems to be like he's a pretty good actor. He's been doing a lot of like we know like what he says later on in the game compared to what he's actually thinking.
Yeah, his entire character premise is manipulation, so not inclined to trust it.
I did appreciate how throughout his confidant is him kind of slowly kind of losing a grip on sanity, because he's like, he's at first he's humoring Akira for the most part, but then he finds out, Akira's actually pretty good, huh? So you're kind of like my equal, so to speak. But then he's like, he's actually getting a lot better, huh? I don't kind of like this, until he kind of gets to the point where he's like, fuck it, let me fight you. And then you get the whole thing, and then you get that whole thing after that where you beat him, and then he's like, I hate you.
Yeah. That was where I started to be like, oh, okay, maybe he's not a good guy.
There's a lot, they literally go, there's a part where they're playing like the gun game, and he's like, you're pretty good at that. And he's like, yeah, well, I need to be in case I need to shoot you. And he's like, what? Just kidding. And it's like they knew that they were doing, they knew this was for the people who played the game from the beginning. You get to take Justine and Caroline on dates.
I didn't do that.
You don't need to because it does. You basically just get skill cards, so it's not really like necessary. But I wanted to do it because I wanted to see what happened. They're just so funny. Like just the interact. Like you take them to the theater and they watch a movie and they get really emotional about it. You take them to the gym and they like make you try like all the hardest settings. You go to the church and they try out confession with the priest. And the priest is just completely confused the whole time.
I have a question about Royale. They give you a lot more stuff to do. Do they give you more time to do it?
Yes. So one of the big things about the original vanilla Persona 5 was the whole meme with Morgana telling you to go to sleep. Because like you do something in the palace, or there's like a big story mission, and then he's like, let's go to sleep and not do anything. But you're like, but you want to do something, so they change it up so that on Mementos, Palace, and story missions on like big important story days, when you like normally where Morgana would tell you to go to sleep, he doesn't do that, but you're locked inside LeBlanc, so you can only do stuff within LeBlanc. So I think that is like a good compromise of like, you can't go outside and do stuff, but you can say like so you can make coffee, make curry, read a book, study, watch something on the TV, make infiltrate. So it gives you like an opportunity to do stuff within LeBlanc. Yeah, it gives you time to do stuff in LeBlanc, like on those days when you normally would be locked out of a time, like a section of time that you could make use of something.
Cool.
Yeah, that was a decision I really liked. Okay, I think we should just jump into the new characters. So
there's small stuff like just to mention real quick, like there's so much smaller stuff that I think makes this the why didn't they make this in the first place edition. Like for example, guns. I remember in the original, you'd fire off your ammo, and they'd be like, all right, you should go refill that next time you're out and at the shop. And I was like, why is this even a thing?
That's right. I remember, yeah.
In this game, you get your ammo back at the end of every battle for Steven's reference. So, like, guns are actually a useful combat mechanic now.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. I completely forgot about because I use the guns so much more of this because I even forgot that in the original you could only use the guns once per Mementos or Palace, and I was like, that was so dumb. But it's like you can use the guns as much as like per battle. They refill after every battle, so it's like that's great.
Yeah, but the new characters, I didn't get very far in the original, and I'll say this with the qualifier that they're. A, I didn't play the original, so I don't know for sure. And B, there is a little bit of the I know this character was added, so they feel a little weird syndrome. But to me, both characters felt very naturally included throughout the main game. Particularly for Steven's reference, there's a new character named Kazumi, who
Yes.
is like she's like a gymnast, I guess you would say. Very, at first, seemingly plain, kind of generic, nice younger student. And there's also Dr. Mariki, who is a therapist brought in after the Kamoshida incident to help out with the psyche of the students in the school. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Of course a school would bring in a therapist or someone to talk to these students after this traumatic thing happened. That makes a lot of sense. And he's a very interesting character throughout.
Yeah, yeah, like you said, I do think the game does a very good job of integrating themselves into the story. Like, if you've already played the game before, yeah, Kasumi especially, I think, kind of goes into the whole, like, oh yeah, you can especially tell, like, what scenes, like, whenever she shows up, like, you're like, oh yeah, this is a new scene, that's a new scene. Maruki fits a bit more into the main story, especially because he's more to the side, so to speak, so he feels more natural. But I think Kasumi is still really well done in how she's handled, like, throughout that main game. That I think like that works out.
Yes.
They also added a new character in Mementos. There's this weird little kid named Jose, who, like, he's like a little kid with white hair. He's driving around in a goofy car, and he's basically like, oh hey, there are now flowers all throughout Mementos. You can collect the flowers. You can go talk to him, and he'll sell you some slight rarish items.
Yeah.
There's also stamps that you can, like, find around Mementos that you can then give to him, and he'll, like, change Mementos to how you want it. So it's like you can get more experience from the shadows. You can get more money, get more items. So it's like something... I never actually used it until the very end, because I thought it was like the stamps where you use it once and then it resets after you come back. But no, you do it once and it's permanent. So I was like, oh, I could have made use of this throughout the game. Whoops.
I have a question for both of you. Both of you have only purchased one of these games.
No, I purchased both games.
Oh, you
I
did?
bought Persona 5 when it was super cheap and played a bit.
Okay.
And then bought Royal.
Okay, so how do you feel about this being a whole separate purchase instead of being an additional DLC?
I think it's complicated because I think the way they integrated the new content, again, it feels very natural, and as we'll get to, I think the end stuff is immensely interesting for this world. So I think at the end of the day, this should have been a $20 to $30 DLC thing marketed as a new game plus, like a what if kind of thing, maybe. I think charging $60 entire dollars for it, for the same system, for what is, let's be fair, it's mostly the same game again, right? Like, it's the version they should have made in the first place version.
It's a superior version by far. Like, there's not even, like, there isn't really any reason to go back and play the original Persona 5.
It completely invalidates the original game.
And I say this because if you do not complete Maruki's Confidant by the time, because he closes Confidant by, like, before the end of Sai's Palace. So if you do not complete it, you do not get to see the third semester in Royal. So it just plays the original game's ending. So if you want, you basically could play the original. Like, you could just not play the the new Royal stuff and just play the Persona 5 stuff if you don't want to, like, make the game even longer. So yeah, there really is no reason to play the original.
Yeah, you kind of have to peek at the guide for that, because you have to get Maruki to a certain point, you have to get Akechi to a certain point, and you have to get Kazumi the new girl.
Yeah.
And by, like, certain different dates for each one.
Yeah,
but yeah, so I support this as a release of this game, because it's absolutely the definitive version. I disagree very heavily on the principle of how they released it. It especially seems kind of blunt when you look at how much Atlas likes to milk their customers, because their DLC costumes are always very expensive. People just kind of know that's what it is from them at this point. But it's one of those things where it's like it made what everyone agrees is a pretty good game into a much better game. But
and I do think I don't think it would work as I don't think it would be able to work as a DLC. Like just the way the story is told, it wouldn't really work as a DLC expansion just because of how Kasumi and Maruki's story throughout the main game is then tied into the ending, and how the ending itself kind of twists itself in a weird way from the original ending.
Yeah, you'd have to exclusively market it as like, this is the DLC for when you've beaten the game. You have to play the whole game over again. This is new game plus, and that's complicated. Which, I guess if you really want to go down that road, you then raise the question of why design the game like this. But again, it's complicated because like it really does, like, I think enrich the entire story, because I was very interested in Maruki, especially throughout the game. I thought he was a really interesting character before they even go where they go with that character.
Yeah, like because of Akechi and Igor, I was like, when I saw Kasumi and Maruki, I'm like, I like these two, but I don't trust. There's something up with these two, and it's because of what Persona 5 did. I know something's going on, but I have no idea what. And this was like added when you get to they add this new scene at the beginning of October, right before the end of Okumura's palace, where they just suddenly cut to Kasumi discovering this mysterious Castle Oblivion palace with this weird eerie music that you just suddenly jump in and you're just kind of like, what the fuck? And that's when Kasumi like unlocks her persona and all that stuff. So it's like I think that was a really good idea, because you're just playing through the game and then suddenly bam, just this super important thing just suddenly comes out of nowhere, and as somebody who played the game before, you're just kind of like, what the fuck's going on? And then you just get back to normal and you're just like, what was that?
I guess for Steven's reference, we should just jump to what they do after the original game's ending. But
yeah,
basically, like at the end of that, the game continues on.
Well, first off, because in the original vanilla, Akechi gets killed by the
Shadow
fake Akechi, a shadow of himself. But and then in the original game, the ending was that. You come back, you fix everything, then Sai goes up to you and she's like, oh hey, in order to arrest Shido, you need to like testify against him, which means you'll be arrested. So Akira's like, okay, I guess I will, and then you get arrested, and like that's how the rest of the ending plays out. But in here, Akechi shows back up suddenly and he's like, oh, I'll testify against him, and they're just like, okay. So they take him in, Akira gets to go back home, hang out with all their friends on Christmas, and they're like, yay, everything's all good and happy and all that stuff. And then New Year's happens, and then suddenly everything goes all fucky.
Yeah, suddenly everything's weird. Futaba's mom is alive, and in LeBlanc with Sojiro and Futaba, and everyone's acting like it's normal, and your face... I feel like your character should question this stuff more. There's a new human who vaguely resembles Morgana, who acts like you two know each other, and you're like, I don't know you.
And then sleeps in your bed.
And sleeps in your bed, and it's like, what? We always sleep together. And you're like, what?
Oh.
But you're basically going through a lot of stuff of like, this isn't right. This isn't... None of this is right. And then it slowly unravels that the Dr. Maruki character tapped into this cognitive science thing, like a persona. Maybe did Igor give him the powers?
No, what happened was that Maruki had developed a persona that was so powerful it kind of slightly manifested itself in the real world and gave him the power to effectively change a person's cognition at will.
Right.
So, and then what he does is that when Mementos fuses during the Eldaboth thing, his persona fully unleashes itself. So he then goes and takes over the spot that Yaldabaoth originally was, takes control of kind of the god power of Mementos, and completely rewrites reality. So it's kind of everybody gets their kind of perfect wish.
Yeah, everyone's basically living their dream life, and I didn't see this coming at all, because throughout the game credit to his performance especially. This is like an incredibly sincere, very nice, like you could talk to this guy about anything 3 seconds after meeting him kind of character, and he's always looking out for everyone's best interests. So when you get to that point, it's like, oh, okay, like giving this the benefit of the doubt to where a man could rewrite reality for everyone, it makes complete sense that he would be like, well, I don't want anyone to ever experience pain or any negative feeling ever again, so I'm going to do what's right and make a perfect reality for everyone on Earth. You know, Futaba's mom comes back to life, Haru's dad is alive and is nice, like all this stuff. And you go to confront him, and he's not he's a ideological villain and not a like physical villain, because it's very much a thing of like, this isn't the way life should be. Like, there needs to be trials and hardships, but he's like, well, there doesn't have to be. Like, I did it. You know, you're good.
He's definitely the antagonist, but he's not a villain like Shido and all the rest of the guy. Like he's a guy. He is just a like. He's just a regular guy. He's someone who is like, you know, he's not a bad guy. He's not trying to hurt people, but he's just someone so wrapped up in his twisted desires that he just kind of, he can't see. He's basically can't see or think straight. So he's just kind of like, oh, it basically is kind of, I mean, Akechi is in a lot of ways kind of the mirror of Akira, but then you kind of have Maruki, which is kind of like the reverse mirror, so to speak, instead, because he's like, oh, he also has the power to change people and like kind of twist like people's like cognitions, but whereas like the Phantom Thieves use it to make them feel guilty for their crimes, Maruki makes it so that people don't feel, like basically removes people's guilt entirely. Which is further emphasized with the twist that Kasumi is actually her twin sister Sumire, who got transformed to believe that she was the real Kasumi by Maruki to avoid the guilt that she felt over her death. Yeah.
Also, Akechi is alive in this new universe. They really fuck some things around in this ending, and to me, it was just immensely fascinating because, like, Dr. Maruki is basically pleading with you the entire time. Like, I don't want to fight. There is no reason for us to fight. Like, I fixed the entire world and everyone can just go on in peace. I know if you don't want this, we have to fight. But take a few weeks and think about this, because I don't want to fight you. I want the best for you. He's like a weird, almost like cult figure, and I think they kind of allude to that a little bit. And
I mean, his whole thing is like, I mean, you would literally get to the top and it becomes the Garden of Eden, and then it becomes literally like the gates of heaven. So it's like, yeah, he's going full God mode.
Man, it's we're not doing it justice by talking about it, Steven. And I'd hate to tell you to play this entire 100-hour game again to experience it. This ending is so good. We talked about the good parts of Five's original ending and how it portrays like the mass population and how like they're the actual villain, and I think that's really smart. I just think this is such a much more effective ending that I kind of wish this was the original ending of that game and that Maruki had been there in the original game, right? Because to me, this is such a much more interesting and like out of left field ending for this game, and it's such a the original thing was like fuck adults all the way to the top until you kill God, and this thing's very much like a more ideological, philosophical point of like villainy, so to speak. And it's much more gray and much more interesting than just about anything in the entire game up until this point. Like, it feels brilliant in comparison to everything leading up to it. Like, I was just floored by how it was unraveling throughout it. It kind of ends in, you know, the anime way, whatever, but the premise and setup and payoff is fantastic. I was floored.
I would argue, at least for me personally, I think it works best as kind of the epilogue expand, like, because I think, because you had mentioned this before, I feel like if it was in the original Persona 5 game, it would have trampled on the Shido and Yaldabaoth stuff, to the point where like they had basically become like a complete unimportant, like when you get to all this, and because you get to the end and you're like, oh yes, you completely forget that Shido was even a thing. So I think that I think what the Royal does, because I think a lot of their game is like under the impression of like, oh, a lot of people who played this game played the original, so it's like they're re-experiencing it. So I think it's gone from the perspective of, oh, you've played Persona 5, you know everything that like we talked about, so now here's this other side of kind of like the coin of like the ideology and the politics of this world and these abilities and what it could do for the world and what people would want to do with it. And I think it very much kind of plays around with people's expectations of what they think like this world could do and what somebody else could do with it. Like I saw it as very much kind of like you said, like the beginning, the original ending being about like the mass consumption of people's thoughts and like beliefs, and this is kind of like about the dangers of like power and like how one person, like it's how one person shouldn't be like the bearer of everyone,
Yep.
and just kind of like the person like oh, the whole I know best thing.
Yeah, even if their heart and intentions are exceptionally pure, right? Like I don't think there's an ounce of outright villainy in that character.
I wouldn't say villainy, but I do think it isn't. I do think that which makes it more interesting is that it isn't completely impure. Like he's not doing this to just help everybody. Just out of say that's definitely part of it, but a lot of it is he's running away from his own pain and his own kind of issues. So it would like his pain with
Yes.
like right the people who screwed him over with his thesis and stuff. His girlfriend getting screwed over by circumstance. Like he has so much like so many issues so many problems that he had to deal with through his life, and he wants to basically create a world so that he doesn't have to deal with that anymore. Like he's at the same time he's helping everybody else by giving them their perfect world, but ultimately deep down he's doing it for slightly selfish reasons. And I do think that makes it like more, especially because he keeps saying I'm so self-sacrificing, like I'm giving up so much for all of this, and it's like you're putting yourself on a pedestal in order to tell people what they should and should think. And funnily enough, it becomes Akechi who is the most self-sacrificing character of this. Yeah. Because when Mark, he has one last chance to try and convince him, he's like, oh yeah, by the way, I kind of brought back Akechi, so if we destroy this world, he's probably going to die. So, and then Akechi's the whole time is like, yeah, I had a feeling about this, but you know what? I don't want to live in your fake world, so I'd rather just die. I'd rather not live than live in your fake world.
Sheesh.
As annoying as I found Akechi through the last part of that, because he's full on psycho, I need to kill everything that breeds Akechi by that point, and to me that kind of wore thin. I did appreciate that aspect of him being like, I'm a fucking monster of a human being, and even I don't want this. Let's get the fuck out of here.
Meanwhile, I absolutely loved psychotic asshole Akechi. Just him going like in his full black mask, just going fucking nuts, screaming, like going full over the top Joker voice. Like it was so much fun, especially his Showtime. Oh, that's another thing we got to mention. There's this new thing called Showtimes where just at random points in a battle you can press a button and then two of the characters will do this very cute fun animation where they'll take out a whole bunch of health for an enemy,
which saved my ass quite a bit in this game.
Yeah, there's a lot of I think those alone you should probably look up on YouTube just to check out because they're really cute. There's Ryuji and Makoto's at the beginning when he's always like, it's the Fist of the Phantom. That's not my name. Shut up. Be serious.
Don't say the name. Don't get a suit.
Ryuji and Yusuke's where he's either at a bar and he gives him food and then a guy shows up and he's like, I'm trying to eat here. And then Jokers too, with Akechi and Sumire. I think those are two of my favorites because they're the most elaborate and crazy of them. I think, especially Akechi's where he's just kind of like, fuck you, die you piece of shit. He just goes full on ham. Robbie Damon might be the best actor in this, just because he's playing four completely different roles all at the same time. Like he's playing like the fake happy-go-lucky Akechi. He's playing the fake evil villain Akechi. That's when he's like first revealed. There's his he's the psychotic Black Mask portrayal, and then there's the way he is in the third semester where he kind of has his eyes kind of squinted down. He's just like, I am tired of all this bullshit around here.
Yeah.
I also really liked Kasumi / Sumire. she ended up becoming my waifu. I picked her, and I'm glad I did, because she actually confesses to you, and if I had to turn her down, I would have felt so bad.
Yeah, I mentioned early on before we got into the royal stuff that she seemed kind of plain, and she definitely does at first. But the way they tie that into the Maraki stuff with that reveal was like immensely interesting to me. I didn't get to complete her confidant, partially because, again, like, I finished this game on a day where I had the worst migraine of my life and I just wanted it to be over. So at a point I was just like, fuck it, I'm seeing the ending, I'll look up the confidants later on YouTube, fuck it. So I didn't see where all that went, but yeah, that was definitely a character who I was surprised by as it went on, because at first I was like, okay, why did they add this character? She's just nice. But yeah, they made it go somewhere by the end of it, thankfully.
Yeah, she's definitely a character where you can see, like, I can see either people absolutely loving her or just not caring about her. Cause she's one of those. She's kind of like that plain type girl that you see in so many of these type of like anime stories, that it's like, oh, people are either gonna love it or they're just gonna be like, oh, she's just too plain and just kind of too uninteresting. Because I do feel I think a lot of the other main characters do get a lot more. They have much more defined personalities and character traits over Sumire, but I think the way she's kind of, her portrayal and just kind of her characterization, I think is enough to make her fun and enjoyable. Yeah, because like, the way the story plays out, that whole palace, the music and everything, I just kept thinking Kingdom Hearts and Castle Oblivion.
Yeah,
it's just
it really has that vibe to it.
Like that piano, that piano, like, no, that sounds like something you would hear in like Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah.
The final boss I actually thought was kind of... It was kind of easy because it was basically just, are you good at baton passing? Then if you're good at baton passing, then the final boss is dead.
Yeah, I hope you play darts, boss.
Yeah. And, and I wanted to mention because the ending slightly underwhelmed me. Just because, so what happens that you go and fight Maruki, you beat him up, he has like 4 different phases because he's just like, no, I'm not gonna die, and then the final phase is literally just the ending of Spider-Man PS4, where you're just kind of beating the shit out of each other with no powers.
Yeah, I read that as the Metal Gear Solid 4 ending, and then it reminded me, there's a lot of endings where you're just on top of something tall and punch the shit out of someone.
Yeah, so you finally defeat him. Morgana turns into a helicopter.
Yeah, that happens.
And then so you escape, and then what? So you escape. Reality turns back to normal. But what they say is that reality turned back to normal, but time didn't reverse. So everything happened as it would have. So because in this reality, Akechi never turned himself in, so Akira ends up in jail. So he's just like, oh, now you're in jail. Whoops. And so the characters end up finding out, oh, he's in jail. What do we do? And so basically the ending of Persona 5 plays out, where it's like all of your confidants get together. They all like do their part to help you get out of jail. Then he's like, oh, we found the girl who originally got you arrested, but now she what's the word? She testified, and now you're free to go. And then you could go back home, and the ending basically, for the most part, plays the same. There is one scene that I do like that they added in Royal, which is basically all of the characters deciding that they're all like basically leaving town and moving on, going on with their futures, because it's like, oh, Ryuji is going to a rehab clinic to kind of get his leg better. Makoto and Haru are going to find a place to live. An's traveling overseas. So I did, because in the original I'm like, yeah, I know Kira has to go back home, but why does he have to go back home? Like, what really attachment does he have there? But here, with everybody else leaving, it's like, oh, there's actually a reason why he's going home, because everybody else is moving on. So, and then, especially because it fits in with like the themes which they experience with Maruki's Palace, about not kind of holding on to your pain in your past and just kind of letting the future decide what you're going to do and where you're going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very sad to see all those characters going their own ways, but I think, yeah, from that point, it makes a lot of sense. Also, there's Persona 5 Scramble, so we know they get back together at some point. But hey, you know.
They do slightly change the final anime cutscene. In the original, it was like you're about to leave, then they're like, hey, we got a car, we're gonna drive you there, and they go there. There's like some police officers kind of stalking them. Morgana like what does he do? You think like he like messes with their car to get them to stall. They drive away, and they're like, yeah, what does the future hold for us? I don't know. Let's go. In this, they change it so that they're about to leave, but then Maruki shows up driving a taxi cab, and he's like, I'll take you for a ride. You go in with him. They go and like fucking drive nuts to distract the black Savan. They all meet up at the train station, and Maruki's basically like, oh, this is my way of repaying you for whatever happened. It's like, this is I'm sorry for trying to kill you. Here you go.
Right. So he did remember everything that happened then. Because I thought that was the point, but I was like, I was trying to think of if there was anything in the game that alluded to him where he was like, I guess I'll be a taxi driver if this whole therapist thing doesn't work out.
The only thing that, on the final day where you can like go around town to talk with everybody, to say bye to them, you can run into the guy that you meet, like his colleague that you see in his confidant. He's like, oh hey, did you hear from Maruki? He like came up to like a month ago. He came up to my place like freaking out about something. He's like, I don't know what happened, but I guess he's like trying to figure out some stuff. And then you see the taxi.
Huh.
I like that decision where it's like he went from being somebody who told people what he thinks they should do for their future to somebody who listens to people, who tells them where they want to go.
I didn't think about that aspect.
Yeah,
that makes him being a taxi driver at least make more sense.
Yeah, like because at first I was like, why is he a taxi driver? But I'm like, okay, thematically it fits.
Yeah. Was it also in the original that they show a flash of maybe Akechi?
Yeah, and that's also in, and apparently, I don't know how, but apparently if you do something wrong, that scene doesn't show up. But I don't know what you're supposed to do wrong to show, like, for that scene. But yeah, there's a scene, like, there's a post-credit scene where Kira's looking at his phone, then suddenly a guy dressed like Akechi walks by, like, outside the train, and he looks, and he's gone. So it's like, oh, Akechi might be alive, but Akechi's never mentioned Scramble, so I don't know what this is teasing. Yeah, it's weird because Josei's whole kind of existence is meant to be teased like as a hint for Scramble, but like Sumire and Akechi are never mentioned in Scramble because the games were both made at the same time. So there's this weird kind of there's a connection, but there isn't really a connection. So it's like you don't know which they're all it's a weird timeline.
Yeah.
I would be curious. Like I would be curious to see like where does that is that just kind of fan service thing of like, oh, maybe Akechi's still out there, or if it's like there actually is plans for like another Persona 5 spin-off whatever thing.
Yeah, that's...
Also, Sumeri's goodbye was kind of underwhelming to me, like, because she's such a big part of the game, and her goodbye is just kind of like, hey, see ya.
Yes, that was a very... It made me think of, like, a movie ending that's, like, trying to be kind of witty and charmy and suave, and it works for that purpose, but I was like, oh, this is a character she really looked up to throughout this game. Why... she's saying a one-liner and leaving, and he's not doing... Oh, he's just going. Okay. Yeah, it felt really... Honestly, the entire thing kind of felt like that to me, but that part especially stuck out to me as like, okay. Could have used a little more there, but all right. We're wrapping this up.
Yeah, it was weird because, they tried to do, like, the connection to... Yeah, they connecting it to Persona 5's original ending, but giving it something new, and yeah, it's just that weird dissonance of like, oh, maybe if just do a slight tweaks and it would have been a bit better.
Yeah, like I wanted to see them at least, I don't know, fucking high five or something at that point. I was like, give me some acknowledgement here, but hey.
Yeah, I still kind of prefer the, like, I know why, like, you couldn't do it because of the way, like, the whole ending of them all going their separate ways, but I do kind of like the Persona 5 or Vanilla's original ending where they're all driving him together. I'm like, oh, that's really nice, and I thought that was, like, a very nice way of ending it, but it's like, I know you couldn't end it the same way with the way they took the story.
Yeah.
But still, it's like, yeah, it's just, it's the that's probably, I think, the biggest kind of, like, difference between the two, of just kind of, like, the weird, like, it's not something like, not just an addition, but, like, an actual complete change.
Yeah. Because I got to the point of, like, I know they would want to drive this van around because, apparently Makoto drives and has a car? Okay, circle back.
Why? Makoto is like she has a license. Like they established she has a license, so that at least makes sense.
Why were the cop?
Well, because that makes sense because the whole thing is that they since Akira was arrested, they know he's part of the Phantom Thieves. So it's that thing of they're kind of stalking him because they're like, oh, we want to keep an eye on him just because to them he's a criminal, so to speak. I
see. Yeah, I guess to me it was just like, why can't you just get in the car and drive and spend the last few minutes with your friends? Why are these cops so easily distracted? Oh well.
Yeah, the cop thing is weird because there's a lot of times in the game where they're like, oh yeah, the cop, like, there's a lot of parts where it's like, oh, the cops know a lot of, like, especially when, like, Akira, when he's arrested and all that stuff, and then he escapes and everything, and you're just kind of like, so they know who this kid is. They know that he's the Phantom Thief. The police know about the world. They literally went into the palace to break you out, and it's just, nobody mentions this. Nobody brings this up.
Guess who didn't think about that until you mentioned it? I just kind of took that as it came at that moment. I was like, yeah, sure, of course. But yeah, that's really weird. That seems like something you'd need to put into a classified document and throw in a garbage chute.
Yeah, the only reason I can think of is that they're basically like, yeah, if there's anything worse than like Shido and everybody, it's the police. Like everybody kind of gets some kind of like bad bang, but the police are just kind of like, yeah, fuck them. I mean, they're literally the first people, like they're the first kind of shitbags you see, and they never get any sort of. So I think that's just kind of thing of like, oh, they're part of this whole conspiracy, and they know, but they don't care because they're all piece of shits.
Just another way Persona 5 was accurate to real life.
Yeah. And just very quick, going back to the one last thing I wanted to say about Maruki is that I don't know. I think this might just be a me thing. But I don't think the game challenges his ideology as strongly as I think they should have. Because I feel like there's a lot of things where they're like, yeah, because Maruki wants to completely rewrite reality and everything, and they're like, oh, it's wrong because it's not actually reality, but they don't really talk about the whole thing of like a lot of it is basically just brainwashing. Like he essentially wants to just kind of wipe people's memories, so it's like there's no progression, no knowledge. It's just flat characterization, and he kind of rules all as the benevolent master, and they don't really delve into the whole like, oh, how kind of icky that is, like especially what he does to Sumeri is really fucked up when you think about it.
Yeah, the characters very justifiably strongly oppose him, but yeah, I would have liked some more talking between them, because anytime they do talk, it's like, man, that's fucked up. Yeah, that's bad. Yeah, that's bad. We gotta do something about this. I would have liked to see those characters explore why a little more.
Especially because you get to a point when, you get to the final point when Maruki is like, hey, come and accept this world, and this is after he says that, oh, if you don't accept this world, Akechi's gonna die, and Akechi's like, so what are you gonna do? And you can say, I'm gonna stay in this world. And so you get a bad ending where Maruki does, in fact, rewrite all of reality, and basically everybody gets their perfect ending. Futaba is with, like, it's like a full, like, there's a little legitimately full ending that you can experience. Where,
I was wondering if there was something there. That's good to hear.
I didn't do it, but I watched it up on YouTube, and it is really eerie. Like, because it's done so happily and sincerely, and it's like, they play it like, it's played like a good ending. But just in the back of your mind, you know that this isn't right. This is, especially like even like Akechi kind of gets he gets completely rewritten as if he was always friends with them, and he was always part of their friends group, and he would never turn bad. Futaba's with her mother, Haru's with her father, and it's just everybody has this perfect life, but then like Joker knows the truth, and he's just kind of looking through and just kind of half smiling through the whole thing, and there's this eerie tone to the whole thing, and I think that, and to the point where I think there's a lot of fans I found online that said that was their preferred ending, and I'm like, you really missed the point. It's like, this is so fucked up, but like in a good, like, it's such a weird fucked up thing of just this fake happiness, and so I've always been fascinated about just kind of that whole like notion of fake happiness and just knowing something is slightly off, and just there's nothing you can do about it. It's just this Truman Show-esque world.
Yeah, I'll need to look into that. My worry was that you would tell Akechi, like, no, I'm going to do it, and he'd just be like, how the hell could you say that? And then it would bring up the dialogue choice again, and it would just keep looping until you picked, no, we're doing out, or something like that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that because I know, like, I think even before I played the game, I had heard people talk about a bad ending, because there is a bad ending in the original Persona 5 when Yaldabaoth's like, oh, come accept my world, and you can choose it, and they play a whole
just
ending.
go, oh, okay.
They play a whole ending where, like, Yaldabaoth is like turn the world back to normal, but everybody is basically just completely complicit, and they're just kind of like, yeah, whatever, we just kind of listen to whatever. Like, we just listen to whatever the Phantom Thieves say. And it even ends with, like, a Joker having this kind of, like, evil smile of just, like, ha, 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 ha.
For some reason, I just imagined him sitting on the throne, Conqueror's Bad Fur Day style.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm just going to pretend that's canon.
Yeah. That was also the reason why I expected there was, like, another bad ending, because the original Persona 5 did have the bad ending. But just like the way they did that bad ending, I thought was like that was a really smart way to do it. And it's like it's just that another extra detail that adds to kind of the weirdness, kind of overall like quality of the third semester.
So I guess as we sum this up, Steven, does this make you want to play through the entire game again to see Persona 5 Royal's new content?
In a few years, sure.
That's probably the right way to approach it, yeah.
I'd honestly say, like, yeah, especially since you've already played Persona 5, I'd say there's no harm in watching it on YouTube.
I don't like watching games.
That's fair.
Yeah, who would do that?
It's already a visual novel. Like, so much of the game is already in, like, a visual novel format, so to speak, so...
Yeah. It's also tough, because, like, if you just go to the end, you miss out on all the characterization of the new characters throughout the game, so yeah. At that point, you may as well just pick it up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it'll be cheap in a few years, too.
Yeah.
Only other thing to worry about is why won't they release Scramble? I want to play Scramble so badly, because, when they first announced it, I'm like, huh, okay, another Persona 5 spin-off. Oh, that looks interesting, but then it's like, no, it's actually a full-on sequel to the original game, and it's, like, it's a really in-depth, like, kind of fighter, so to speak, and I'm like, damn, now I want to play it.
Yeah.
And they refuse to localize it. I don't know why.
My optimistic hope is that by year's end, we'll at least hear that they intend to do something, because, yeah, I feel like Persona 5 is too popular for them to not do. It's probably just like a weird timing thing.
Yeah, my theory is that the reason why Golden was released on Steam, like, recently was because they're like, with like probably something happened that got delayed, so they're like, oh, we're putting this out to kind of ease the time between Royal and Scramble's release.
Yeah, because purely speculation on my part, but the whole work from home thing a lot of people are having to do now probably hit right around the time they either would have been starting to plan or midway through doing Scramble for the West. So yeah, that was probably like hopefully a benevolent thing on Sega or Atlus's part of like, all right, well, this is a shitty fucking thing, so we're just going to push some of these projects back to give you time to be a human being and adjust. Maybe it's not that way, but, you know.
And I mean, within this time, Aniplex somehow managed to find the time to dub Persona 5 animation, so...
And charged $300.
$300 fucking bucks because Aniplex is crazy.
Yeah, so I'll be finding a different way to watch that if I watch it.
I mean, I assume they, because the Persona 5 animation itself is on like Crunchyroll and stuff like that. So if they, like, I would be weird if they only leave it to. Like, I assume it'll be like on on Crunchyroll or on High Dive or something like that, because like it wouldn't make any sense to have it just limited to a bonus feature on a DVD.
Yeah, for sure. But I've heard not great things about that, so we'll see if I even bother.
Yeah, it's only. I think it's only like there are like all the original moments. I think are worth like it's a show that's like look up on YouTube all of the like original like sections that they added of like stuff that weren't in the games. But anytime they're retelling the games, it's just kind of like it's just a worse version of the game.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's the same thing like with the manga that I've been kind of reading through. It's like it's pretty much just a weaker, trimmed down version of the game. Anytime they add something new, it's interesting. Like in both the anime and I think in the manga too, they show like Kamoshida's assault on Shiho. So it's like that like makes it like even more powerful. But like outside of that, it's like little things like that are fine. But all of the retelling stuff is just kind of like, yeah, we saw this and it was better before.
That's a shame.
But it's like, yeah, I if I had to explain my experience overall with Persona 5 is that playing Royal again made me appreciate my love for, because I originally it was like, oh, Persona 5, I really enjoyed it, but especially with the discourse online and with how the fans react, and also I'm like, is it as good as I remember, or is it just something I enjoy? But then playing through it, I'm like, I remembered why I fell in love with it to begin with and why I really enjoyed this game. And I think it's like those kind of like experiences that like make you kind of reevaluate and reappreciate what exactly you like about anything really. So just kind of be like, oh, it isn't just something I enjoyed because it's fun or it has things that I like, but it's like, oh, this is a really well done product. It made me play for over 135 hours and I didn't feel the time at all.
Yeah. Steven, how would you sum up your time with Persona 5?
Just good. It's a good game.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely one of my favorite JRPGs. Wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. I'm very glad I played it all the way through. Don't know that I'll ever do it again, but I'm glad I did it at all, at least.
Yeah, in a few years, maybe I'll do it again.
Yeah, Persona 5 Re-Royal on Switch 2.
Maybe I'll try the New Game Plus. I'll do the New Game Plus eventually at some point. Then I can do all the stuff I missed out on.
Yeah, but before that, I still need to play Persona 4, so that'll be my next.
Yeah, I
thing.
need to do that and 3.
Yeah,
very quick. Did you check out the Thieves' Den at all?
I poked in it while I was still playing the story, and I was like, I'll get back to this. Then I deleted it off my PS4 after I beat it, so oops.
I mean, it's basically just something that you'd want to like look up on you, because the interactions between all the characters as they are kind of reacting to the certain objects and stuff are really cute, and it's something. It's like, oh, you want to see all of the different character combinations. It's like during Mementos when you're hearing like the character conversations. It's like you just want to hear a compilation of all of these together, just because they're like the bouncing off of all of the characters is like that's one, which is one of my favorite things about the whole game. So it's just I played Persona 5 Dancing just so I could hear more of these characters bouncing off each other. I don't even care about the dancing games. I just wanted to hear them. I just wanted to hear more with these characters, and it's just like I think that shows like how strongly the writing and characterization are, that I can just listen to these kind of useless just kind of jokey fun things, and I'm like, yeah, give me more of them.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, that's everything.
Yeah. I think we've said all we can say about Persona 5 for the moment.
I mean, I probably could say more, but I don't want to go on for any longer, so I'm gonna shut myself up.
Heard. Okay, thank you everyone who listened. Let us know what you thought of Persona 5 down in the comments.
Royale with cheese.
With cheese, please.
What do they call this? What do they call this game in America?
Persona 5 Quarter Pounder.
We're rolling deep into your underground grave. Lotus Enterprise.